Little background on General McInerney. For 35 years, General McInerney served as a pilot, commander, and strategic planner in the United States Air Force. Tom retired from military service as Assistant Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force and Director of the Defense Performance Review, reporting to the Secretary of Defense. General McInerney graduated from the great United States Military Academy and earned a master's degree in international relations from George Washington University. Tom also attended the Armed Forces Staff College and the National War College. He is co-author with our friend, and his friend, of course, General Paul Vallely, of the book Endgame. It is my honor to have back with me someone I consider a very dear friend, General Tom McInerney. Tom, welcome back to Operation Freedom.
Great to be with you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Tom, we have a lot on our agenda here. Let's start off. I have been roundly criticized over my support of President Trump's taking out, I believe, the most vicious terrorist in my life, that being Soleimani. I've been called a war propagandist. On the other hand, I believe taking out Soleimani was an act that will prevent World War III. Tom, you have been a strong advocate of peace through strength. You have advocated for peace initiatives. Tom, what's your take on what happened with Soleimani and the current situation with Iran?
Well, President Trump's decision to take out Soleimani, Dave, was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm in 100% agreement, no, 150% agreement with you that it was the right move to keep peace in the region. This was the most dangerous, to include Osama bin Laden, all of the ones that have been taken out recently. This, by far, was the most dangerous radical Islamist in the region, directing the Iranian Quds Force as well as the IRGC. And President Trump is the only president of the last three we've had that has had the courage to do it, and he deserves a special place in heaven for doing it. The world is much, much safer because Soleimani is out, he's off the street, and now the Iranians have got some big problems trying to replace him because they'll not be able to replace him. Mm-hmm. He was irreplaceable. So you get great kudos for concurring in that position.
And in fact, Susan Rice, former National Security Advisor to Obama, she said, well, we never really had the opportunity. Now, Tom, I have some contacts with former very high-level military intelligence individuals, and they told me, and you can tell me if this is accurate or inaccurate, they told me they had multiple opportunities during the Obama administration to take out Soleimani, and those opportunities were willfully and knowingly passed upon by Obama and his security team.
I concur 100% again, as did Bush 43. They had opportunities to do it. And both of them elected not to do it, and for different reasons. They may have been correct or they may have been incorrect. But President Trump made the right decision, and that region is now more secure. We have more deterrence in the region, and President Trump's position of strength in the region has been increased greatly because of that.
And Tom, I also made the point, and again, you can correct me, that Soleimani wore many hats, one of which was, yes, the head of the Quds Force for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps out of Iran, but also he wore the hat, the larger hat, of, if you will, head of terrorist operations for the international deep state complex.
That's true. He cut a wide swath there. Another hat he wore was the most trusted advisor to the Iranian head of state right now. And so he had all those different positions. And because of that, that was crucial to why he was taken out, among other things, having killed, responsible for 806 U.S. deaths with the enhanced foreign penetration devices that they used against U.S. forces in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So he had lots of different hats. He cut a wide swath. He was by far the most important one. As I said, he's a trusted advisor of Khomeini, the Iranian leader, Mullah. And for those reasons, all of them, it was a brilliant stroke and courageous by President Trump.
And as we've discussed, Soleimani wore the hat, if you will, of head of terrorist operations for the deep state. Well, let's talk about another deep state operation, that being on our own soil, domestic, and that is this impeachment hoax.
Wow. I mean, this nation has never seen anything like this, Dave. Mm-mm. This is the greatest act of treason in the history of the United States, and the American people have got to understand what's going on, because from the day they tried to impeach him, when he started to run, they didn't try to impeach him, they tried to get him not elected. Mm-hmm. So once he was elected, they continued this hoax, and Mueller investigated it for almost 2 years. They couldn't find anything, and it's continued till today. The impeachment procedure is going on today, and they're doing it for one reason. The impeachment procedures now are designed to try to cover up and get the public's attention on the impeachment and not on what John Durham and the Attorney General Barr are doing, is looking into the Russian hoax, which was a coup d'etat, and all the things, the Russian dossier funded by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, and all of the things that John Brennan, that Jim Clapper, that Comey, and unfortunately that President Obama approved, as well as Vice President Joe Biden. Their hands are all covered with this greatest treason, and I believe that's why they have made this stupid move, which they did by impeaching the president without any without any crimes or misdemeanors, and they don't have any provisions. And if the Republicans approve of witnesses coming in, they are just supporting an incompetent investigation by the House. And so I shout out to those Republicans that think they have to have other witnesses. You are supporting the work that the House should have done. They wouldn't call those people like John Bolton and the others, because they are on this tear to cover up what they have done in this whole impeachment thing, which is a cover-up for the treason they committed against this administration.
Well, Tom, if these witnesses that the Dems supposedly want to call were so important, they had they conducted this this goat rodeo of an impeachment hearing hoax for months. They had plenty of time to call all these people that they're talking about now. They need to be called in the Senate. Well, they were running the show. I mean, they're the ones who precluded this any type of representation for the president. They're the ones who would not let the Republicans call witnesses. They had it all their way, and now they're saying, "Oh, we need to have these other witnesses called." I mean, come on.
Yeah, they want the Republicans, and if any Republican votes for witnesses, they are complicit with this cover-up. It's that simple, because the Democrats did not do their job. They would not let the president defend himself. Again, why did they have to rush it? Well, they've got to rush it, and because of John Durham's report, or what he's doing, it's more than a report, it's an investigation to this greatest treason against the U.S. government to try to have a soft coup d'etat and get President Trump out. And so anybody that supports that and extending it in the Senate and having the Senate do the work that the House was supposed to do, they're the ones that impeached him. They've got to have the evidence, is supporting the Democrats in doing this. Look, we know the mainstream media is.
Mm-hmm.
For example, why is the mainstream media not covered Eric Charmella, the so-called whistleblower? He's not a whistleblower. He's a leaker.
He's a gossip blower, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact is, every mainstream media should have reported this now. You've reported it numerous times on your station. I've done it on other stations.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, why is the mainstream media covering this up?
Well,
because they're part of this grand conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. And this Eric Charmella, who was the gossip blower who had no firsthand knowledge of that call that the president had with the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, Charmella is a CIA operative who has been under the thumb of John Brennan for years.
Exactly, as well as the vice president. When he was in the NSC, he worked with the vice president's office. So he is a card-carrying, deep-seated Democrat operative. And who helped him do it? None other than the DNI IG Atkinson, who changed the rules that said it didn't have to be firsthand, that it could be hearsay, to become a whistleblower.
Right. So Atkinson changed the rules as Inspector General of the for the Department of the Director of National Intelligence. Right. He changed the rules so that this guy could be a whistleblower when in fact he was not a whistleblower. This Atkinson guy, Tom, was also at the National Security Division of the Justice Department when these false, fraudulent FISAs were being issued on Carter Page and General Flynn and the like. Precisely.
And that's why they have this deep state is so dangerous to this nation. And here you got the Director of National Intelligence, the Inspector General, is a deep state operative, part of a conspiracy to take down the Trump administration. Now, unfortunately, he was appointed the DNI IG under President Trump, who didn't know any of this. You know, he just approves it. But the fact is, we've got those operatives that are still embedded in there. Eric Charmella, Atkinson, they're all in collusion and in a grand conspiracy. And that's what is about to unfold, being led by the Attorney General, and that's why Nancy Pelosi badmouths the Attorney General, because she knows there's some honest people trying to track down the CIA, the DNI, the FBI, the Department of Justice, these people that had politicized under the guidance of President Obama. Look, it's got to go right to the Oval Office.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not deny it.
Mm-hmm.
He's right in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this whole impeachment is about, to try to cover that up.
That's right. So this is one huge business model of the deep state. They created the Russian collusion hoax, which didn't work. Then they created the Ukraine hoax, which didn't work. Now they're created the impeachment hoax, and all three of those hoaxes are meant to cover up what Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Mueller were all involved with, which is something that you brought to this show along with Admiral Lyons on March 19th, 2017. And that was the illegal surveillance through parallel platforms, not on the NSA platform, parallel platforms of something called the Hammer.
Precisely, Dave. And the fact is, Mary Fanning and Alan Jones put out a great article today. The headline says, Woolsey, Brennan, Clapper, and Comey frame Trump and Flynn in Russian collusion hoax, fearing exposure of the Hammer. And the Hammer is exposing all of this with detailed information that what those people were doing on surveilling the Trump campaign and then the Trump administration. And that's why Mike Flynn had to go. That's why Mike Flynn was target number one. He was ground zero. And
because he wouldn't go along with the plan.
correct. But Flynn also knew that the Obama administration provided weapons to ISIS, or the Syrians at that time, that became the keystone of ISIS. Those weapons went through Benghazi and were shipped into Turkey and then into Syria. And so the Obama administration armed ISIS and helped ISIS get off the ground. Mike Flynn knew this when he was the director of the DIA.
And he testified.
So all of this is coming back.
And he testified behind closed doors to Congress under oath about that.
Exactly. That's why this deep state is so dangerous, because they're still embedded in all departments and agencies. And it's amazing that President Trump has been able to accomplish what he has done to date.
It is actually amazing, because there's this multiple layers, starting with the senior executive service layer of all these deep state players that are acting like choke points of blocking the freedom information to get out, and also protecting their own, such as Brennan, Clapper, Obama, Comey, Mueller, all along the. It's amazing that he has been able to do what he has been able to accomplish.
It is, and that's why it's so important that when it comes up to the voting for witnesses, if any Republicans vote for more witnesses because they think information that came over from the House on the impeachment, if they vote for it, they are playing into the hands and they are complicit with the Democratic Party with what they're doing. If they're not smart enough to realize this impeachment should be thrown out at the very first opportunity.
Well, speaking of not being servile about people around him, here's a little headline from this morning, Tom. Donald Trump's top Russia expert on the National Security Council was escorted off the White House grounds amid a security investigation on Friday. Andrew Peek is on leave from the National Security Council pending a security investigation. He is the senior director for European and Russian affairs on the National Security Council. He was escorted from the White House grounds on Friday. He had been on the NSC role for just 2 months after most recently working as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State with responsibility for Iran and Iraq. President Trump is surrounded by these people that play for the deep state, and you know, frankly, Tom, if I were the president, I would probably fire 90% of the people that currently are around him.
Well, he should. Anybody that came in under the Obama administration, all those ambassadors, he should have fired them immediately when he came in, just like his predecessor did. So the fact is all those people that stayed in and that became part of the Ukrainian problem and all the other things, they have continued to try to play his role that he left behind, and he's well funded with George Soros and other groups that are continuing to fund these people, and that's why Eric Charmello and Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who's in the NSC, I would court-martial Vindman for leaking information to Eric Charmello. Mm-hmm. The American people should be told right away about Eric Charmello. This impeachment would go nowhere if they all knew who this guy was.
Mm-hmm.
And why are they keeping it secret? Everybody who knows anything knows who he is and what he did. That kills their case. They don't want him to testify. They'll come up with a bunch of excuses. So Devin Nunes is trying to go after Atkinson and get him fired for what he did. Why the acting DNI has not fired him already amazes me. So the president has got some deep problems that he's got to get the right people in to support him. He doesn't have them right now.
Tom, what do you say to the people who are very concerned that the Senate will turn tail and, if you will, convict President Trump from through the House impeachment process? What do you tell those folks?
Well, I tell them, first of all, it won't happen, and because the numbers, and I think that when those 4 or 5 Republicans that want witnesses because for election or whatever, when they get the facts and they listen, they'll say, all you're asking us to do is to continue the work that you should have done in the House, and you did not do it because you felt this was a sense of urgency, and then Nancy Pelosi waits 30 days before she sends over the articles of impeachment. And so any Republican that becomes part of that should be targeted and defeated in the upcoming elections or when they are up next. If they're not smart enough to understand if they are playing into the hands of the Democratic Party, then so be it. They shouldn't be senators.
Tom, I'd like to thank you for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. You might have retired from your position with the Air Force, but you never retired as a patriot.